Last week, we brought you part 1 of our behind-the-scenes look at the 2012 Dakar Rally. We joined the Imperial Toyota team for 3 of the 14 stages, spending our time between the deserts and the coastline of Chile. There are lots of superlatives when it comes to this race, but there's one that just can't be described in words. You can watch all the Dakar footage you like, you can read all the figures you like, but nothing gives you a sense of the pure scale of this event, like a visit to the bivouac, where all these teams at the end of the race day will strip down and prepare the cars for the next day's racing. Those guys over there, in fact all the teams, at the end of every day will pack up, load it onto the trucks and drive hundreds of kilometers the next day to the next stage, unpack and do it all again. I wasn't sure if I should have been more in awe of the people who plan the event or the people who actually have to stick to its schedule. Besides the 742 drivers, navigators and riders, there were almost 1,000 support crew, and in the end, all of those that managed to make the finish covered 8,300 kilometers in just 2 weeks. As for the vehicles, well, there aren't too many races in the world that use 11 helicopters to get things done. That's along with 12 aeroplanes and 55 trucks. As team boss of Imperial Toyota, Glenn Hall knows more than most just what it takes to start this event, never mind finish it.
What happens in the beginning, the stress is extremely high because we had the trucks coming from Europe, we had the parts flown in by SAA, which was unbelievable to see all these boxes in the cars arrive out of an A340 Airbus, and it fills 2 of these trucks. But to get the routine for every day, once we got that sorted, and that takes 3 or 4 days, the stress levels come down quite a lot. In the beginning, I mean, you can imagine we've got 3 cars or 4 cars in components in all of these trucks, and knowing where it all is, that's quite stressful for the guys.
It looks as though there are enough spare parts here to build these cars 5 times over. And it's not only the cars that need to be fixed, the drivers suffer a fair amount as well. Tessa Loftus is the Imperial Toyota team's chief driver repair person.
It's a tough race. Yesterday they had a really hard day. They were tired physically as well as just drained. I think the last week's taken a lot out of them, but they're fit, and this race day is going to help them a lot, I think, for the next week. They drink close to 10 litres between the 2 drivers in the car each day, depending on the length of the stage. Sometimes they drink more, they need more energy drinks, and sometimes they need less, so it depends on the stage. It's very hot in the car as well, so they need to keep rehydrating, and when they get back into the bivouac, then I give them rehydrate again just to keep them hydrated.
Believe it or not, the bivouac also provides food for everyone. They served around 3,000 breakfasts a day, but mealtimes aren't always adhered to.
Sometimes the drivers get in later than what the bivouac's food provides, so then we have to also give them food. And the drivers take food with them in the car for the day, because sometimes they start just after breakfast and they get in before dinner, so it's a long day for them.
Long days are just part of the race, but it's a long race as well, and that means it can be lost early unless teams stick to a smart strategy.
On day 1 and 2 you've got bounds of energy, but this event is lost really on day 10, 11, 12. When you get to 14, we need to still be checking the cars the same way as we do on day 3. So all of that is really important.
With all that stuff to carry around, how do they decide what to leave at home?
You make that decision purely on experience from previous Dakars that you've been on, and against what you've broken during testing or what has got worn more than you would have imagined during the testing. A simple thing this time was the electric fans for the radiators. We changed the design a couple of months ago, and the cooling has been a fantastic development by the team and the engineers. I mean, we seem to be running the coolest of anybody by a significant margin. But the fan blades on the fans that we purchased, there's some gyroscopic effect when the cars are turning and bouncing in the camel grass, and the fans are eating away the mounting of the actual fan itself, something that we didn't see before. So, but we did have 8 of them as spare, and we're going to use all 8 of those. So we made a plan with that.
Then there are the things that you wouldn't necessarily think about providing for on an event like this, like keeping the sponsors happy by making sure their logos are visible on the race machines. No, I don't know where they find all that clean water in the desert. Inevitably though, there will be emergencies that aren't anticipated. What then?
well, it's a horrible word, but we do bring what we call a bodging kit. Some stuff where we can make up something and make a plan, as it were, on the way. And South Africans are really good at that, you know, making things work. And you depend on old friends and acquaintances within the Dakar bivouac.
One of those old friends is the guy whose job it is to make sure that all the cars and all the trucks and all the parts and all the people within the team get to where they need to be with as little fuss as possible.
We've been working with Glenn and his team for many years, obviously in different guises, but in terms of Imperial Toyota on the Dakar, we've supported them in terms of all their logistics requirements from Europe, so all the big 8x8 service trucks, the T4 race trucks which actually follow the race cars along the route. The numbers just start making the job a bit tougher. I mean, we've got over 300 tyres, we've got over 250 rims, we've got I think almost 40 drive shafts. If you start just going into the numbers, it gets mind-boggling.
Moving stuff from one country to another is one thing, but the support team still has to get from one stage to another, and that doesn't always go smoothly.
Basically, the loop of yesterday was split into two. First one went very well. Started the second loop, went very well, I thought. Dunes was good, everything was good. Till just before sunset, we were going very well. Next moment we slid off a dune, got stuck into a hole, knocked the tire off the bead. Then things went a bit pear-shaped. I had to get the tire back on. After that the sun was down and we were driving circles all the way through the night till 4 o'clock this morning. Went over the dune. Was quite an impressive moment. That dune was, jeez, can't explain how big that dune was. It's over, got in the bottom. Eventually they phoned in, said can we go on the road back. We went back on the road, came here about 11 this morning.
There are literally thousands of parts that accompany the team, and a team of many that helped the Imperial Toyota team take third place in their first ever attempt. It all started with an idea that took the form of a race car in the head of designer Michael Jardim.
When I first started designing the car, I went around and I spoke to all the mechanics and found out where they struggle with the previous cars we've had. Basically, a lot of the Dakar is about maintenance. So every night you get there, you want to work on the car, you want to get to bed as soon as you can. So all the places where the mechanics were taking long, like changing a gearbox, all that sort of stuff, I focused on that to make it as easy for them to work on. And obviously after the Dakar we'll reassess and see where we had problems, and then we'll make that a little bit easier to work on in the future. And the quicker you can get to bed, the fresher you'll be for the next day, and if there are any major problems then you're ready to fix them. So that was one of the criteria, and obviously the other criteria was performance with suspension. Most of the performance of the car comes from the suspension, not only from the engine. When the stage is very rough, the better the suspension works, the quicker you can go over the terrain. You could have as much power as you want, but it doesn't really help. You can see from the Hummer, they don't conform to the same rules as we restricted to with suspension. They have a lot more travel. So when it gets rough, they just clean up, they're gone. But hopefully in the future they'll bring them more in line with what we have to run. So it'll make the whole series a bit more competitive.
The next Dakar should be an even better race for Imperial Toyota. The cars they raced this year already conform to next year's spec, and added to that, the 2012 winners, Mini, will have to make do with one less turbo next time around. Long-term plans aside, while the race is on, the drivers need to make sure that their preparations for the next day's stage start as early as possible.
As soon as you get out the car, your preparation starts for the next day. You get out the car, you clean your helmet, get your balaclavas, get your gloves, get your kidney belt, get all your kit ready. You get your washing, your new overalls or your washed overalls, get them all prepared. Then you obviously have a debrief with the team manager, with Glenn, tell him all the issues you had today and make sure that nothing is forgotten, because just the smallest little thing that you neglect to mention can cause huge or have huge ramifications for the following day. While we're driving, If there's any issue that we can think of in the car, we write it down so we don't forget, and then we give the list to the engineers at the end of the day. Then we go and get our massages and we have something to eat and we're straight into bed, because you need rest. You've got to be well rested to not be too tired.
The cars rely on two people in particular, one doing the driving and one telling the driver where to go. It's pretty obvious what it takes to be a good driver, but when it comes to navigating, Force looks for a particular set of skills.
My choice of a navigator is Rob Howie, and he builds a car, so he is obviously an engineer himself, and he's very technically minded. I understand the car and I understand when something isn't working properly, and I tell him about it. For example, today we had a gear linkage problem where one of the rose joints broke, and in the liaison we had, he managed to fix it through cable tying it together and sorting the problem out. So it's invaluable to have a mechanical mind in the car.
Force is a regular on the local rally scene, so he knows his rallying stuff. But this is his first time at Dakar, and even at 51 years old, he's still learning from his Dakar-winning teammate, Janil de Villiers.
Look, it's a huge challenge, and obviously he's very quick, and as you say, he's won the Dakar. So his knowledge in setting up the cars and getting the right settings for the type of terrain we can expect to race in is invaluable. You know, if you didn't have someone like Janil in the team, you'd be 5-6 years behind in gaining that knowledge. So it's crucial to have a top driver in the team like Janil.
Added together though, there's no denying that this team as a whole is near the top of the pile. With 3 out of 4 cars finishing, 2 in the top 10 and 1 on the podium, Imperial Toyota's success in the Dakar Rally is even sweeter, knowing that this first attempt was in a car that's already prepared for next year's challenge.